Good morning, everyone. My name is Deirdre Denman, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for EandM. Thank you for attending part 2 of our Get a Grip on Robotics webinar series this morning. We're going to be focusing on the vacuum and Gecko Grippers by OnRobot. After the webinar, we'll be doing a short Q&A. Please type any questions or comments into the Q&A box, the chat box, or you can email us at webinars@eandm.com. Before we get started this morning, I would like to mention that this is a live streamed webinar to show the demos, and it is recommended to have your settings set at full screen. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce one of our robotic specialists at EandM, who will be your presenter this morning, Lillie D, and I'll turn it over to Lillie to get us started today.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry there, Deirdre. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to switch to my video so you guys can actually see me here, and we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry that last week we had some technical difficulties with people not being able to see me. Hopefully this system kind of mitigates some of those issues. Like Deirdre said, I'm one of your robotics specialists here at EandM. And if you weren't aware, EandM has kind of gotten into the realm of robotics recently. And today we're talking about some really cool technology from OnRobot, specifically their vacuum grippers and their technology that they call Gecko Gripping. So I'll let you kind of imagine what that is right now. A little bit about OnRobot before we get diving into the actual technical information. If you haven't heard of OnRobot, that's okay. They are an end-of-arm tooling manufacturer out of Denmark, and they make plug-and-play tools for mostly cobots, but sometimes they can be used on other kinds of robots. They're universal, so I don't care what brand of robot you happen to have. There is a flange and the appropriate software patch for your robot controller. So they're really easy to plug in and then start producing your product or start playing with the gripper. OnRobot is also constantly innovating. So if you don't see something in this presentation today that looks like it will solve your problem or be the solution for your application, that's okay. You can either shoot us an email and kind of see what else, give us an idea of what your application is, and we can try to find a better solution for you. They're bringing out new products all the time, so if they don't have a solution right now, it's possible they might have one in a couple of weeks, a couple of months. They've promised us a large number of products this year, and so far they've been delivering. I know last week or 2 weeks ago when I did my first presentation in this series, I mentioned that they were going to be bringing out a new product the following day. They did, and that's some of their new vision. So they're constantly bringing out new products, so keep your eyes peeled for new and cool things from OnRobot. So that's kind of a very little bit about OnRobot. We'll kind of get into the cool stuff now. So I'm going to start with the vacuum grippers. So traditionally, you use vacuum for picking up, relatively flat things. I always think of using them in a palletizing kind of application. You go over, pick up a box, and lay it down. And normally, those grippers, I apologize, he's got one of his little arms up, and I'll explain that in a second. But normally those grippers have some kind of air pump that helps to create the vacuum. What's really cool about the OnRobot ones is that they don't have the need for an external air pump. Yes, this relatively small unit here actually has a vacuum creation pump inside of it with a little valve. It's kind of hard to see, but there it is right there. That's the intake. It creates its own suction. So no need for extra tubing, extra weight, the pump on the outside to get this guy up and running. So a little bit more about the specs of this specific unit. This is called the VG10. It has a payload of about 15 kilograms, so it can pick up some pretty hefty stuff, but it does weigh about 4-ish pounds. So if you are working with a smaller cobot or a smaller robot, you know, this might not necessarily be the best solution for you. As you can see, it does unfold. So each of these little arms unfolds to create a much larger area. When it's completely unfolded, it's somewhere in the range of about 15-ish inches by 15-ish inches. So it's a lot bigger of a gripper when you get it that big. But you can also fold it back up. And this is the nice part. They're really, really stiff arms. Woo! And I might not be able to close it. There we go. The spinach this morning helped. And so when you fold it all back up, it's about 6 inches by 6 inches. So you can kind of get a little bit of a different size profile for it, you know, depending upon your application. It does also have two air, you can have 2 different air groupings with the suction cups. So it is divided in half. So you can pick up 2 different things or shut one off entirely and use the other one if you wanted. You can take these cups off and replace them with smaller ones or larger ones, depending upon your product. It also does come with the option to blank some of the holes. So if you only wanted to use, you know, the ones on the edges and not the ones in the middle, you can blank the ones in the middle with little metal caps. So it's really quite powerful considering it has no external vacuum. So this is the kind of more traditional model that OnRobot brought out. This is their original vacuum gripper. And sadly, I don't have their newer model, the VGC, which is the VGC10, which is the compact one. So I'm actually going to show you some pictures in that slide presentation I had up earlier, just to kind of help you guys visualize it a little bit more. So hopefully you can still see my screen, or you can now see our PowerPoint. So this is the VGC10 vacuum gripper. Now, this is a lot smaller as far as the product goes. I'm sorry, there we are. So this unit is a lot smaller. It's only about 4 inches by 4 inches by 4 inches. So it's a lot smaller of a product. So like I said, this one is a lot closer to 5-ish inches around. It's also got some more configuration options to it. You can kind of see them here. The standard version is on that bottom left-hand side. The extended cup is in the center. And then using an adapter plate is on the bottom right. So what's really interesting about this product is it also does have that internal vacuum creation, but it also can lift 15 kilograms as well. So it's significantly smaller and more agile as far as orientation of cups and things, but it still has that 15 kilogram payload, which is awesome. So I did mention just previously that it has an adapter plate. One thing that it does do when you add the adapter plate to it is it changes the number of suction cups you can place on the unit. So this is just kind of to give you an idea of kind of where those cups get oriented. But what really happens when you add the adapter plate is you can create different channels. So again, the unit, or air channels. The unit is split into 2 sections, so you can turn one section on to grip certain items and turn the other section off if you'd like. Depending upon how you orient the adapter plate, you can either get 2 separate channels at the top, or you can get 1 single channel for a higher volume vacuum. Essentially, the plate just has some grooves on the back that help channel the flow of air to get different styles of vacuum. Another really cool thing about the VGC10, the compact, is that you can add external designs to it. Sadly, that nifty extended suction, the cup holder, is not something that OnRobot necessarily designs for this. It could be something that you create in-house. And all you would actually need to get this all hooked up is those little adapters down there in the bottom right-hand corner of that slide. That's essentially a little press fit adapter, so you can put tubing from the actual gripper to where you need it on your new fancy designed extended tool. So let me just get you back to my video. So just a few more things about the VGC10. It's great for lifting smaller, oddly shaped, and a little heavier objects. So if you need to get down inside of something to pick up a product, that's kind of more what it's designed for. Also, it's designed for just a lighter operation. The VGC is only 2-ish pounds, while this one, like I said, is closer to 4. So again, depending upon the robot you're using, what you're trying to get a hold of, you kind of can pick and choose between the VGC10 with that expandable arms, or the VGC10, the compact version that you can kind of rearrange all the cups and everything like that. So that's all that I have for the vacuum style grippers. But we're going to move on to kind of my favorite technology from OnRobot, and that's their Gecko Gripping. So if you have ever watched Animal Planet or the Discovery Channel, you might be watching more of that than usual right now. Whenever they talk about geckos, they show them climbing on walls, hanging from ceilings, things like that. And they have special little pads on their toes that help them adhere to flat surfaces. So that's the same kind of idea that OnRobot uses for their gecko pads. So I know it kind of doesn't look like much when I'm just holding it up to you like this. It's a smooth pad, it's not sticky, but as I get it kind of closer, I'm going to try my best to show you guys. It kind of has little tiny hairs inside of this pad, and essentially that helps it stick to flat, smooth surfaces, like, for example, my cell phone screen. So I'm going to take my pad. You do actually have, you can't just stick it on. I mean, it kind of stays, but it does have to be applied with a certain amount of pressure. And now it's stuck to my phone screen. I can't get that off. So, there we go. So it takes a significant amount of force to get it to adhere, and then a significant amount of force to get it off. So generally speaking, just as far as this technology goes, it's going to be best for items that are not going to have any kind of debris, so not a cardboard box. Glass works great, polished steel, acrylic, that kind of stuff. And depending upon what material you're trying to pick up, it's going to have a different payload capability. So when I'm talking about the payload capability, I'm actually talking about 4 pads used together. So this is the original Gecko gripper. It's really big. So if you thought the vacuum gripper was big, this one actually comes in closer to like 6.5-ish pounds. So this is a pretty hefty product. But when you are using 4 of the Gecko pads, there you are, you can actually pick up a pretty significant amount of weight. So give or take about 12 kilograms of glass or sheet metal and about 14.5-ish kilograms of polished steel and acrylic. So if you can kind of imagine how heavy that might be and how the adhesion works with this, that's kind of what we're looking at. So like I said, this guy is pretty big. He's about 7-ish inches high and about 6-ish inches square. So he's a large gripper, end of arm tool here, but he does have a couple of reasons why he's so big and so heavy. You can't quite tell, but these pads are actually recessed into the housing here. So they do extend so that you can apply force to the object that you're trying to pick up. And then they pull up to lift the object, and they also retract to release the object. So that's why it's a little heavier. It's got some mechanical stuff up in the top. And then these two little holes right here are actually ultrasonic sensors to help you know, figure out your approach to the product that you're picking up. So it's got a little bit more electronics in it than it might meet the eye, but that definitely does kind of show itself in how heavy it is. So I always get questions about the cycle time of the pads. So it kind of depends on there's two different preload styles. So there's a high pressure preload and a low pressure preload. So depending upon if you're using the high pressure or the low pressure, the cycle time for these pads kind of changes. If you're consistently using the high preload, it's somewhere in the range of 150,000 to 200,000 cycles for the pads. On the low side, it's somewhere in the 200,000 to 250,000 cycles. So they can be used over and over again on a clean product without much trouble. These pads can be cleaned. I have a handy dandy lint roller here, so I can clean my pads at home. But the big Gecko Gripper head here does have an option to get a cleaning station for it. So it essentially does the same thing as I just did with my normal lint roll here. And it does go across two directions, 90 degrees from each other to clean the pads. And you can do that depending upon, you know, as frequently as needed for your process to prolong the life of the pads. The pads are also replaceable. The one that I'm using to stick to my phone and stuff is my replacement pads. So you can actually pop these out of here. It is quite a process. They're held in here with super strong magnets. So it does take a little bit of strength and willpower to get these out, but you can replace them with new pads. No need to buy a whole nother unit. Now, if you're looking at this Gecko Gripper and thinking to yourself, this is way too big for my application, I totally understand. And luckily, really recently, OnRobot has brought out their single pad Gecko Grippers. So they look like this. They're the SP1, SP3, and SP5. So the SP1 can pick up, give or take, about 1 kilogram. The SP3 can do about 3 kilograms, and the SP5 can do about 5 kilograms. Essentially, the main difference here is just the diameter of the pad. They go from about 30-ish millimeters up to about 75-ish millimeters. So they're much smaller, and as you can see, they're they're longer and skinnier. So they have a much smaller footprint and are better for more delicate applications or just a smaller area or a lighter robot. So what's really great about these is, unlike their big brother, they don't have any sensors or any electronics or anything in them. They're completely, for lack of a better word, dumb. You can just snap them on and start teaching the robot how to press and lift so that you can you know, start picking up smaller items. And what's really cool about this is that you can start looking at even tray applications and things like that. So again, Gecko Gripping is great for flat objects that don't have any debris or might be holy. So think kind of like a PCB board or something like that. In its process, there's areas where you might want to use this. And then one thing to note about both of these products, you might have noticed that they have a little adapter on the top. That is something that we call a quick changer. The one on your screen right now is actually a dual quick changer. So there's 2 slots for 2 different end of arm tools. But you don't have, they do also make one that's just a single quick changer. So what's a little bit different about these products versus the ones that I have here at home with me is that little flat connector there. So it used to be that all of their devices had connectors on the actual end of arm tool. OnRobot has moved to a more simplistic modular style. So if you did ever need to change your end of arm tool, you don't have to disconnect a whole bunch of cables to put a new one on. So that's what that little flat connector is for. And so all of the new models actually have that power there. So no more cables running to the actual tool. What's also really cool about this dual quick changer on your screen here is that it allows you to put 2 similar or completely different OnRobot tools on your robot. So you can put 2 vacuum grippers. You could put a vacuum gripper and a 2-finger gripper. You could put a Gecko gripper and a 2-finger gripper. It allows you to customize your tooling for your application. So if you were doing a machine tending application, you could put 2 grippers on it. If maybe the product changed kind of randomly that you were picking up and you might want to move from a Gecko gripper to the vacuum gripper, you can do something like that. So it makes it nice and easy for you to kind of adapt to your environment. So that's kind of all I have for you guys this morning. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to stick around and answer some. But thank you so much for attending today.
Thank you, Lillie. So as Lillie mentioned, we would like to open it up for a couple of questions. Please type any questions you have into the chat box or Q&A box, or you can email us at webinars@eandm.com. We did receive a couple of questions during the webinar. So we'll start with the one that came in first. Does OnRobot or EandM offer any accessories for the vacuum unit?
Okay, so I do get a lot of questions about this. Sadly, at this stage, OnRobot and EandM don't necessarily have a solution for alternative suction cups or vacuum tubing. OnRobot does offer a couple of sizes that we can request, but if you wanted to do something fully custom, we would have to point you in the direction of someone else.
The second question is, can I place the extension tube anywhere on the VGC10?
Oh, yes, you can. So depending upon what sort of application you're looking for, you don't actually just have to use one extender. You can use more than one. I believe the kit comes with 2 or 3 tubes that you could actually screw all together, or you could screw into different parts. All of the VGC10 ports are threaded the same, so you can use it on any of the ports that you would like.
And do the Gecko gripper pads leave any marks?
No, they do not. So that makes them great for finished product or anywhere where you want non-marking for your application.
This question we might have to respond offline, but Lillie, do you know the model number for the original 15 by 15 VGC10?
That is the model number, VGC10.
And then what happens on the Gecko gripper if liquid or fluid gets on the parts being lifted?
That is a very good question. From what I understand, they do not recommend using the Gecko Gripper on things that are not completely dry. I haven't had the instance of needing to grip something that might be damp, but depending upon the product, it might have some issues. I'll have to double check with my technical support on that.
Okay. I think that actually concludes all of our questions at the moment. Thank you, Lillie, and everyone who attended today. If you'd like to review any portion of the webinar, a recording will be available on our YouTube channel and on our website at EandM.com. Thank you again for attending, and we hope to have you again for part 3 of our Get a Grip on Robotics webinar series in June. Thank you so much.